The wind came down like knives that Christmas night. The kind of cold that doesn't just bite, it cuts straight through leather, through skin, through whatever armor a man thinks he's built around himself over 47 years of living hard. Marcus Reaper Donovan sat on his Harley outside a closed gas station on the edge of Denver, watching his breath turn to ghosts in the air. He was empty. Most people were home with their families, warm, eating too much, pretending everything was fine. He'd stopped believing in that illusion 23 years ago. The patches on his vest told a story most people crossed the street to avoid. Hell's Angels. Vice President. The death's head grinning from his back. He'd earned every thread of that vest through blood and choices that kept him awake some nights, though he'd never admit that to anyone. Not to his brothers in the club. Not to the bartenders who served him in silence. Not even to himself most days. He was supposed to be at the clubhouse. They were doing their annual Christmas thing, the one concession to normalcy they allowed themselves. Turkey, whiskey, the pretense of brotherhood that felt heavier every year. But he needed air, needed to ride, needed to be anywhere but surrounded by people trying to forget who they really were. That's when he saw her. Just a shape at first, hunched over the dumpster behind the gas station. A shadow moving through shadows. He'd seen plenty of homeless people over the years, especially in this part of town. Normally, he didn't look twice. Everyone had their own demons. Everyone made their own choices. That's what he told himself, anyway. But something made him look again. She was young, maybe mid-20s, thin in a way that spoke of months, not days. Her coat was too light for this weather, more holes in fabric. Her hands were bare, red, and shaking as she pulled something from the trash. A half-eaten sandwich, still in its wrapper. She didn't eat it right away. She just held it, staring at it like she was trying to remember something. Marcus watched her from across the lot. He told himself to start the bike, to leave. This wasn't his problem. He'd spent decades building walls specifically to avoid moments like this, moments where someone else's pain tried to become his own. But he didn't leave. The girl found a spot against the brick wall of the gas station, partially shielded from the wind. She sat down slowly, carefully, like her body hurt. She probably hadn't slept in a real bed in weeks, maybe months. She unwrapped the sandwich with the kind of reverence people usually reserve for prayer. That's when the wind shifted and he saw her face. Not clearly, not enough. Just a glimpse in the harsh sodium light of the parking lot. But something in the shape of her jaw, the way she held her head, sent a spike of ice through his chest that had nothing to do with the temperature. He killed the engine. The silence was immediate and total. She looked up, startled, her whole body tensing like a rabbit that's just spotted a wolf. Her eyes locked on him, and he saw the calculation happening behind them. The same calculation he'd seen in combat zones and back alleys. Fight or flight. Except she looked too tired for either. Marcus didn't move, didn't approach. He knew what he looked like. 6'3" of scarred leather and hard choices. The kind of man mothers warned their daughters about. The kind of man he'd become because it was easier than being the kind of man who felt things. They stayed like that for a long moment. Him on his bike, her against the wall, the cold wrapping around both of them like a shared secret. Finally, he reached into his saddlebag. Slow, deliberate, pulled out a thermos. He'd filled it at the clubhouse, more out of habit than need. Black coffee, still hot enough to burn. He walked toward her. She pressed harder against the wall, but didn't run. Nowhere to run to. Not in this cold. Not this late. He stopped 6 feet away, set the thermos on the ground. Step back. It's just coffee, he said. His voice came out rougher than he intended. He hadn't talked to anyone in hours. She stared at the thermos like it might bite her. Like kindness might be more dangerous than cruelty. She was probably right. I'm not going to hurt you, he added. The words felt hollow, even as he said them. Men like him said that right before they did hurt you. Everyone knew that, but she was so cold. He could see her shivering even from here, her entire body vibrating with it. After another moment, she reached out and grabbed the thermos, pulled it back fast like she was stealing it, unscrewed the cap with shaking hands. The first sip made her gasp. Too hot, but she took another one anyway. And another. He watched the steam rise around her face. When did you eat last? He asked. She didn't answer, just held the thermos with both hands, letting the heat soak into her fingers. There's a diner about 2 miles west, he continued. All-night place. I could give you a ride. Now she looked at him, really looked, and he saw something in her eyes that made his stomach turn. Not fear, not suspicion, recognition, like she'd seen men exactly like him before, like she knew exactly what they were capable of. I don't need a ride, she said quietly. Her voice was hoarse, from the cold, from disuse, from screaming that no one heard. He'd heard that tone before, in places he tried not to remember. Suit yourself. He turned to go. Better that way. Cleaner. He'd done his good deed for the year. Given her coffee. That was more than most people would do. More than he usually did. Wait. He stopped. Didn't turn around. Can I ask you something? Her voice was so small now, almost swallowed by the wind. Yeah. Do you know what day it is? The question caught him off guard. Christmas, he said. December 25th. There was a long silence. Then she laughed. Just once. A sound with no humor in it at all. My dad used to love Christmas, she said. Back before everything fell apart. He'd wake me up at 6 in the morning. Couldn't wait to see my face when I opened presents. Mom would get so mad at him. She paused. Took another sip of coffee. That was a long time ago. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. Something he'd kept sealed for 23 years. What happened, he asked. He didn't know why. He never asked questions like that. He left, she said simply. I was 4. My mom said he had demons he couldn't fight. Said sometimes people get so lost they can't find their way back, even when they want to. She looked down at the thermos. I used to think if I was good enough, he'd come back. Kid logic, you know. His hands were shaking now. Not from cold. What was your name? The question came out before he could stop it. Your name when you were 4. What do they call you? She looked up at him then. Really looked. And even in the bad light, even through 23 years of life grinding her down to this moment, he saw it. The shape of her mother's eyes. The curve of his own stubborn jaw. The tiny scar above her left eyebrow, where she'd fallen off her bike when she was 3. Why do you want to know? She asked. Because I've been looking for that name every day for 23 years. Because I say it when I'm too drunk to remember I'm not supposed to feel anything. Because walking away from you and your mother was the thing that killed whatever good was left in me. But he didn't say any of that. Instead, he took a step closer, then another, until he was close enough to see the details. The birthmark on her neck. The way she bit her lower lip when she was nervous, just like he did. The unmistakable evidence of his own DNA staring back at him from a face hollowed out by a life he wasn't there to protect her from. Tell me your name, he said again. His voice was breaking now, the armor cracking. 23 years of careful construction falling apart in a gas station parking lot on Christmas night. She set down the thermos, stood up slowly. She was tall, almost as tall as her mother had been. She looked at him with eyes that had seen too much and believed in too little. My name is Sarah, she said. Sarah Donovan. But I haven't used that last name in a long time. Not since my dad decided his motorcycle club was more important than his family. The world stopped spinning. The wind stopped blowing. The cold stopped matching. She tilted her head slightly, studying his face. And then her eyes dropped to his vest, to the patches, to the name embroidered over the left pocket. M. Donovan. Her face changed. Everything about her changed. The color drained from her cheeks. Her breathing got faster. Her whole body started shaking. And this time it had nothing to do with the cold. No, she whispered. No, you're not. You can't be. He couldn't speak. His throat had closed completely. 23 years of running. And here she was. Here they were. In the last place either of them should be, having the conversation he'd rehearsed a million times and never believed would happen. Sarah took a step back. Then another. Her hand went to her mouth. I looked for you, she said, and her voice was shaking. When I was 16 and Mom died, I looked for you. I called every clubhouse in Colorado. They said Marcus Donovan was dead. They said you died in a prison fight in Arizona. I let them say that, he managed. It was easier. Easier for who? The words came out sharp. Angry. Good. Anger he could handle. Anger made sense. For everyone, he said. Your mother wanted me gone. The club wanted me focused. You. His voice broke. You deserved better than a father like me. She stared at him. Tears were running down her face now, cutting tracks through the dirt. I was in 12 foster homes, she said quietly. 12. Some were okay. Most weren't. I aged out at 18 with $300 and nowhere to go. And you want to know the worst part? He couldn't answer. I still hoped, she said. Every single day. I still hoped that maybe the stories were wrong. That maybe you were alive somewhere. That maybe you'd come looking for me. She laughed again, that same hollow sound. And here you are, on Christmas, giving me coffee like I'm just some random homeless girl you felt sorry for. You didn't even recognize me. That was the knife that cut deepest. Because she was right. Sarah, he started. Don't. She held up her hand. Don't say my name like you have a right to. You gave up that right 23 years ago when you chose that vest over us. She bent down, picked up the thermos, and handed it back to him. Their fingers touched for just a second. That was all. Just 1 second of contact. Father and daughter. Stranger and stranger. Merry Christmas, Marcus Donovan, she said. I hope it was worth it. And then she turned and walked away. Into the dark. Into the cold. Into the nothing she'd somehow survived this long. He stood there holding the thermos, watching her disappear. Every instinct told him to go after her. To explain. To beg. To do something, anything that might fix this. But his feet wouldn't move. Because she was right. About all of it. The wind picked up again. Colder than before. Or maybe he just felt it now that the numbness was wearing off. He looked down at the thermos in his hands. Still warm. Still half full. And for the first time in 23 years, Marcus Reaper, Donovan did something he swore he'd never do again. He broke. He didn't remember falling to his knees. Didn't remember the sound that came out of him, something between a howl and a prayer. Didn't remember how long he stayed there in that parking lot. The thermos still clutched in his hands like it was the only real thing left in the world. When he finally looked up, she was gone. Completely. Swallowed by the darkness and the distance, and 23 years of choices he couldn't undo. He should have let her go. Should have climbed back on his bike and ridden away. Gone back to the clubhouse. Gotten drunk enough to forget this ever happened. That's what the old Marcus would have done. The smart Marcus. The one who survived by feeling nothing. But that Marcus was gone now. Broken apart by a hollow-eyed girl who used to call him daddy. He stood up. His legs felt strange, like they belonged to someone else. He walked to his bike, started it, and went the direction she'd gone. Slowly. Searching. The streets were empty. Most of Denver was still inside, warm and safe, and pretending the world outside didn't exist. He rode for 20 minutes, checking alleys and doorways and the kinds of places people went when they had nowhere else to go. Nothing. He was about to give up when he saw a flicker of movement near an overpass. A figure huddled against a concrete pillar, trying to get out of the wind. He pulled over. Cut the engine. It was her. She didn't look up when he approached this time. Just sat there, arms wrapped around her knees, staring at nothing. Go away, she said flatly. I can't. Yes, you can. You're good at it. 23 years of practice. He deserved that. He deserved worse. You're right, he said. About everything. I was a coward. I chose wrong. And there's nothing I can say that makes any of it okay. Then why are you here? She still wouldn't look at him. Because you're my daughter. And I've been dead inside since the day I left you. And seeing you in that parking lot. His voice cracked. It broke something. Or maybe it fixed something. I don't know. I just know I can't watch you walk away again. Watch me. She finally looked up, and her eyes were blazing now. You didn't watch anything. You weren't there when Mom got sick. You weren't there when she died. You weren't there for any of the nights I cried myself to sleep wondering what I did wrong. You don't get to show up now and pretend you care. I'm not pretending. He took a step closer. I'll look for you. After your mother passed. I heard about it 3 months late. Someone in my old neighborhood told me. I went to the last address I had. You were already gone. Swallowed up in the system. And every time I tried to find you, I told myself you were better off. That some nice family had adopted you. That you had a real life, far away from me and what I'd become. Well, you were wrong. She laughed bitterly. Surprise. Turns out having an absent criminal father doesn't make you very adoptable. The words hit him like bullets. Each one true. Each one earned. Let me help you now, he said quietly. Please. Help me. She shook her head. You can't help me. You can't fix this with money or guilt or whatever this is. You can't buy back 2 decades with a hot meal and a place to crash. I know that. Then what do you want from me? She stood up now, facing him. Forgiveness? You're not going to get it. Some tearful reunion where I fall into your arms and everything's okay? That's not real life. Real life is where fathers leave and daughters survive, and there's no magic words that make it better. I don't want forgiveness, Marcus said. His voice was steady now, even if his hands weren't. And I don't want a reunion. I want to know you're not going to freeze to death tonight. That's it. That's all I'm asking. Let me get you somewhere warm, somewhere safe. And then if you never want to see me again, I'll respect that. She studied his face. He could see her weighing it. Trust versus survival. Pride versus cold, hard reality. Why should I believe you? She asked. You left once. What's stopping you from leaving again? Nothing, he admitted. You have no reason to trust me. But here's the truth, Sarah. I'm going to die someday. Probably sooner than later, the way I've lived. And when I do, I want to die knowing you're okay. Not rich. Not happy necessarily. Just okay. Alive. Safe. That's all I want. That's all I've got left to want. The fight seemed to drain out of her then. She looked so tired. So impossibly tired. There's a motel about a mile from here, she said finally. The kind that doesn't ask questions. I've stayed there before when I had money. Okay. I'm not riding on your bike. I'll walk with you. We can push it. She stared at him like she was trying to find the trap. The angle. The moment where this all fell apart and proved she was right not to trust him. But she was also so cold and so tired. And it was Christmas, and maybe some small part of her still believed in the kind of miracles that happened in the stories her mother used to read her. Fine, she said, but this doesn't mean anything. This doesn't make you my father. I know. They walked in silence. Marcus pushed his Harley, the weight of it nothing compared to the weight of everything else. Sarah walked a few feet away, maintaining distance. Making it clear this was transactional. Survival, not reunion. The motel was exactly what she'd described. Peeling paint, broken sign, the kind of place where people went when they'd run out of better options. The clerk barely looked up when Marcus paid for a room. Cash. One night. He added 3 more nights before Sarah could stop him. The room was small, clean enough. A bed, a bathroom, heat that actually worked. Sarah stood in the doorway, like she was afraid to enter. Like crossing that threshold meant something she wasn't ready for. I'm going to go, Marcus said. There's a diner next door. I'll leave money at the desk for you. For food. For whatever you need. I said I don't want your money. I know what you said, but I'm leaving it anyway. What you do with it is your choice. He turned to go. Made it 3 steps. Wait, she said. He stopped. Why did you leave? Her voice was small again. The anger gone. Just the question that had haunted her for 23 years. Was it really just a club? Was I really that easy to walk away from? He turned around slowly. She was crying now, not bothering to hide it. All the walls she'd built up crumbling in the face of the one question she'd never gotten to ask. No, he said. God, no. Leaving you was the hardest thing I ever did. But your mother was right. I had demons. I still do. I was drinking too much. Getting in fights. Bringing danger home. And one night, he stopped. Breathed. One night, I came home drunk and angry, and I put my fist through the wall. 6 inches from where you were standing. You were 4 years old, and you looked at me like I was a monster. And I realized your mother was right. I was dangerous. Not just to the people out there, but to you. To the 2 people I loved most in the world. So you left. So I left. I told myself it was noble, that I was protecting you. But the truth is, I was a coward. I was afraid of what I might become. Afraid of the day you'd look at me the way you looked at me that night, and it would be permanent. So I ran. I joined the club because they didn't care what kind of man I was. They celebrated it. And every year that passed, it got easier to tell myself you were better off. That I'd done the right thing. Were we better off? Sarah asked. The question wasn't angry anymore. Just sad. I don't know, Marcus said honestly. I like to think so. But looking at you now, seeing what life did to you anyway, he shook his head. I don't know anything anymore. They stood there in the doorway. Father and daughter. Stranger and stranger. Connected by blood and separated by everything else. I used to have a stuffed bear, Sarah said suddenly. Brown. Missing one eye. You won it from me at a fair. Threw baseballs at bottles until you knocked them all down. I carried that bear everywhere. Even after you left. I kept it until I was 12. Then one of the foster families threw it away. Said I was too old for toys. Marcus felt something break inside him all over again. I remember that bear, he said quietly. You named him Growly. Yeah. She smiled a little. Just a little. The first real smile he'd seen from her. Yeah, I did. The silence that followed wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't hostile either. It was something else. Something fragile and new and terrifying. I should sleep, Sarah said finally. I haven't slept in a real bed in, she stopped. A while. Okay. He started to leave again. This time she didn't stop him. But when he reached the parking lot, he heard the door open behind him. Marcus. He turned around. Thank you, she said. For the room. For the coffee. She struggled with the words. For stopping. He nodded. Didn't trust himself to speak. I'm not saying this fixes anything, she continued. I'm not saying we're okay. But she hugged herself against the cold. Maybe it's a start. Maybe that's something. Maybe, he agreed. She went back inside. Closed the door. He heard the lock click. Marcus stood in the parking lot for a long time, looking at that door. Behind it, his daughter was probably taking the longest, hottest shower of her life. Crawling into a bed with actual sheets. Feeling safe for the first time in who knows how long. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't redemption. It wasn't a fairy tale ending where everything magically became okay. But it was something. He pulled out his phone. Called Tank, the club's sergeant-at-arms. Yeah, Reaper? I need some time away, Marcus said. From the club. From everything. How long? I don't know. Maybe forever. There was a pause. This about a woman? This is about my daughter. Another pause. Longer this time. Didn't know you had a daughter. Yeah, neither did I. Not really. Not in any way that mattered. What are you going to do? Marcus looked at the motel door again. I'm going to figure out how to be her father. Or at least how to be someone she doesn't have to be afraid of. I owe her that much. Club won't like it. I don't care what the club likes, Marcus said, and realized it was true. I've spent 23 years caring what the club wants. Where it got me? Right here, watching my daughter dig through trash on Christmas. So tell them whatever you want. Tell them I'm dead again if it makes things easier. I'm done choosing that vest over real life. All right, brother. Good luck. Marcus hung up. Took off his vest for the first time in 15 years. The death's head grinned up at him in the parking lot light. All those years. All that blood. All those choices that seemed so important at the time. He folded it carefully. Put it in his saddlebag. Maybe he'd come back to it someday. Maybe he wouldn't. Right now, it didn't matter. What mattered was behind that motel door. What mattered was learning his daughter's story. Understanding the woman she'd become despite him. Finding out if there was any way to build a bridge across 23 years of absence. It wouldn't be easy. She'd probably hate him again tomorrow. Probably kick him out and disappear, and he'd spend the rest of his life looking for her in parking lots and alleyways. But maybe not. Maybe, just maybe, she'd let him buy her breakfast. Let him ask about her life. Let him sit across from her in some crappy diner and just listen. And maybe that would lead to another breakfast. And another. And slowly, carefully, they'd figure out what fathers and daughters were supposed to be when they came at it this late and this broken. He didn't know. He couldn't promise anything. But for the first time in 23 years, Marcus Donovan had something real to fight for. Not territory, not reputation, not the approval of men who'd forget his name the moment he was gone. He had a daughter, alive, right there, behind that door. And tomorrow morning, when she woke up, he'd be in the diner next door, waiting, hoping, ready to try. It wasn't redemption, but maybe it was something better. Maybe it was a chance. The wind had died down. The cold was still brutal, but manageable. The sky was starting to lighten in the east, Christmas morning arriving the way it always did, indifferent to human suffering and human hope alike. Marcus climbed on his bike, started it. The engine roared to life, familiar and final. But he didn't ride away. He rode to the diner, parked, went inside, ordered coffee from a tired waitress who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. And then he sat in a booth by the window where he could see the motel door. And he waited, because that's what fathers do, even the ones who forgot how, even the ones who had to learn all over again. Even the ones who showed up 23 years too late, but showed up anyway. The coffee was terrible. The booth was uncomfortable. The sun was coming up on a day that would be harder than any fight he'd ever been in. But Marcus Donovan sat there and waited for his daughter to wake up, to walk through that door, to give him one more chance. Or not. Either way, he'd be there. That was the promise he made himself as Christmas morning broke over Denver. He'd be there. Finally. For real. For as long as it took.